Our next guest is compañero, comrade Kyle Pettis, the Institute's labor guy, as we're fond of calling him. Comrade, it's been at least a couple weeks since we've had one of these very much appreciated Comrade Kyle labor updates. Um, since then, the UAW has achieved a contract with the big three, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. Can you tell us a bit about the agreement? How does it compare with the demands, and what role did the stand-up strike play in twisting the hands of the big three?
Yeah, so that was a great segment, by the way. That last guy, I enjoyed listening to that. A lot of fresh information about what's going on. But yeah, as to the UAW and the big three, we had, as everyone's probably aware, they had the big stand-up strike going on, pretty much nationwide with by the end of the strike, and it saw tremendous success. It was a revolutionary sort of idea on how to conduct a strike. It's the first time this has happened, and new strategy with strike capabilities of the unions. Um, it was also the first time that all three of the big companies, the big three they're called, Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors, were all struck at the same time. And so the rallying cry from the UAW was that record profits means record contracts for the workers. And pretty much everybody's agreed that that's been accomplished. I mean, the UAW voted very strongly to accept these contracts. There was there was some dissent within the General Motors rank and file, from what I understand. But having talked to the General Motors people, rank and file on the ground, because I was at a General Motors plant during the strike, talking to the guys on the picket line, and I kept in contact with some of them afterwards. The inside scoop that I was able to get was that uh, they liked everything in the contract, but they felt like it wasn't fair enough for the temps, a lot of the temporary workers, who essentially how it came down is that not all temporary workers will be given the uh, full status, if you will. It's only temporary workers that have been there for 9 months or more. And then in the future, it'll be temp workers after 90 days. So, or sorry, I have that backwards. It's temp workers who had worked there for at least 90 days were included in that strike package, but then you have to work 9 months to achieve full status as a member of the union and everything else. So those workers will still be excluded from some of the union benefits and the pay scale and everything else. But unfortunately, that was what the General Motors wasn't willing to give anything more, and that was already when they started out this negotiation. They said we're not going to change anything with temps, and in fact, we're going to expand the number of temps that we have, trying to really break the union. And I mean, if we go back to the beginning of this strike and look at what the initial proposals were from the big three, I mean, it was horrendous. They were talking about very minimal wage increases. We were talking about slash in benefits. We were talking about removing of all pensions in general. They were talking about expanding temps. They were talking about potentially shutting down a couple plants. And Shawn Fain with the United Auto Workers was able to reverse all of that. I mean, we're seeing about a 25% wage increase over the life of contract for almost all three of these big companies, which is massive. That's unprecedented. I mean, that really is a record contract as far as just the economics is concerned. And beyond the economics, they got a lot of guarantees about what's going on with the electrical vehicle production and bringing those new assembly plants they're being produced for the production of the electronic vehicles, assurances that they will be part of the UAW as well. So we're talking about an expansion of the union already through the currently existing contracts with Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. And on top of that, there was I believe it was a Ford plant in Belvedere, um, Michigan, or no, Belvedere, Illinois, and that had been on the chopping block. Ford was going to close that plant, and if anybody's familiar with living in a small town which relies on pretty much one stable job as the lifeblood of that sort of community, That's what Belvedere was. It was an assembly line in a smaller town, surrounded by other smaller towns, and pretty much everybody has to work at the plant or they don't have jobs in this area. And Ford was talking about pulling the stakes and just shutting the factory down completely. It had been on a what they call idle for, I believe it was for quite a while. I don't know if it was over a year, under a year, or somewhere in that time period, around a year. So these guys had been essentially laid off or offered employ. They had to be offered to relocate to other states, uprooting their whole lives if they wanted to keep their job. That's what happens when your plant goes to idle. And the UAW was actually able to negotiate with Ford to reopen the plant, and it's a couple thousand jobs that they were able to not only that were on the chopping block, but we were able to save, and actually forced Ford to reopen the plant and actually expand it. They're going to start, I believe, working with. There's some talk about they might be trying to take the plant and turn it into one of their new EV electronic vehicle assembly lines and stuff like that. So there's a lot of I mean, there's just so much accomplished with these contracts. And like I said, beyond, I mean, the finances alone, the economics are some things that most union organizers only hope for. I mean, 25% is massive, and they ended the tier system as well. So there is no longer this, pitting worker against worker, people doing the same job getting paid different rates and everything else. And not only that, but a lot of some workers are actually seeing a 33% increase in their pay over the life of the contract because they were on different scales under that tier system. So um, they're pretty much standardized the wage scales across all plants, and now workers are able, really getting what they deserve. I mean, they're putting the same parts that are going into the same cars. They should be getting the same pay rates, right? So it was just a massive win. And none of this could have been accomplished without the strike. The strike went for 40 days and 40 nights, a little bit over that actually, and they've really hammered that home. People, it's really reinvigorated the union as well as a whole because this all started with the electing Shawn Fain as the president earlier this year. And because and this guy's he's in his first year as the president of the UAW and he's already accomplished this. And he was elected on a platform of destroying the breaking up the corruption within the UAW and reinvigorating the union, and he's really seemed to accomplish that. And every guy I talked to on the on the picket line was singing Shawn Fain's praises. So I think he's here to stay. They were, they're like, I have, I for years and years I just thought the union was corrupt, and I didn't think that like they were doing anything for us. But here, I feel like we're back in the fight, and members have a voice and everything else. And that's something Shawn Fain's really honed in on, trying to. Really talk about is that it's up to the membership. The membership is what makes the union, and the union doesn't exist without the workers on the front lines. And he's really tried to put the power back into the rank and file, and I think that's a tremendously good thing and very important for the future of unions in this country in general. And it's kind of he worked hand in hand with some other big labor leaders as well behind the scenes. I mean, there was lots of talks between Sean O'Brien and with Shawn Fain. Sean O'Brien being the president of the Teamsters Union, of which I'm a member. I'm really proud to see Sean O'Brien stepping up and having lots of talks with Shawn Fain, and going on social media and everything else, trying to get support for the UAW across all the other unions as well. And I think that Shawn Fain is kind of spearheading, along with other labor leaders who have the same mentality, trying to get these guys to move forward and bring back the rank and file and the civic unionism that really built this country up to what it is. Um, on top of that, I mean, it's just the amount of people that partook in this. I mean, they're ready for next contract. And Shawn Fain's kind of given us a hint of what he's thinking about for next contract in one of his YouTube and Facebook Live video conferences with the rank and file, in which he talked about that he's reset the negotiation date for 2027 for it to expire at the last day of April, so that way they can have a, as he put it, general strike on May 1st, International Workers' Day. So I think Shawn Fain's got a little bit of aces up his sleeve, I think, in the near future, and using the word general strike and International Workers' Day. So he also encouraged all other labor leaders to try and get their across all industries to try and get them to have their contracts expire at the same time. He's really trying to get people to push for this general strike idea and trying to really bring labor together. And I'm all for it. I mean, it's just unprecedented move by a labor leader, and he's really not. I mean, traditionally the unions just back the Democrats and don't really that's as far as they get in political. They just back whoever's going to run for president of the Democratic platform. But Shawn Fain's had no problem criticizing the president. He's had no problem criticizing Trump and the Republicans as well. He's just a very plain spoken, direct to the point. I only give a shit about workers' rights and unionization efforts and everything else can take a back seat behind the working class. And you got to admire it, honestly. And he still, I believe, to this day, he says we're not endorsing anybody at the moment. Nobody's earned it. So you love to see it. And so moving on from that as well, in that same speech, which was like the victory lap, basically, with the rank and file talking directly to him and having the national organizers who were involved in the speech as well. Um, he also said that he is going to be launching renewed unionization efforts across every single automotive factory here in the United States, and that is already underway. They have already
Before we get
begun.
into
Yeah, go ahead.
before we get into yeah, because that's the next like big question. But this is such a tremendous, huge victory, and I mean, we can't ignore the context that produces a figure like Shawn Fain. The working class has just been beaten down uh, tremendously by capital over the last few decades, and it's fighting back literally, like you said, like never before. It's unprecedented. I can't even think of in the heyday of the CIO, communist founded CIO. I can't think of similar examples to a major union like UAW literally asking other unions to come together for a potential general strike in 2027. Um, of making such militant drives to organize the non-unionized, of right now getting involved in calling for a ceasefire in Israel's genocidal war against the Palestinians. It's a level of working class consciousness unlike we have ever seen in this country, or at least not in a very, very long time. One of the big things that I think is coming out of this victory with the big three is the fact that it was won through struggle. You know, we tend to forget because of the structures, whether it's the media, the school textbooks, social media. It feeds us this narrative that whatever small good things we might have, it's came, either the goodwill of the capitalists or it kind of was always there, and they never explain where it came from. But every single thing that's worth a lick that we have in this country came through the struggles of working people. And this confirms that once again. So how do you see this? How do you see this victory changing how it is that the working class sees the approach to gaining a better living standard? I feel like it's necessary for them to recognize after this that it can only come out of struggle.
Yeah, I feel like Shawn Fain is trying to coach the rank and file UAW that into understanding workers' democracy with how much he emphasized every single time. It's the membership that matters. It's the membership that votes. It's the membership that makes the decisions in this unions. It's no longer closed door meetings with the big bosses between corrupt union officials. We're not doing that anymore. We're bringing back workers' democracy within the union, and I feel like he's almost coaching them to. You know, take that beyond the union, take that beyond the workplace, think bigger than that. And I think that a lot of rank and file guys are starting to ask, questions about like, if we can if we could pull this off, if we can win these big demands like this, and we can really flex that working class muscle, why can't we do that on a larger scale? And I think those kernels of that are starting to form in these people's minds, and there's a lot of sympathetic people within the labor movement who already think that way and are already influencing those things as best they can. So I think that I think the time is approaching where more and more people are going to take that sort of mentality. It's just a matter of obviously the union is not. unions themselves are extremely hampered by laws in this country about, sort of being too political. Where they're very fenced in, legally speaking, about certain stances they can take, and so on and so forth. And I think that it's going to take people who are within the labor movement, who are willing to maybe find creative ways to overcome that, to kind of see anything beyond that just that small spark getting turned into a flame, if you will, in these people's minds and their consciousness. But I think it's a task that's, probably one of the most important things to be undertaking. These are working class Americans that are still the backbone of this economy. They're the working class Americans that um, by and large are completely fed up with how things are. They bust their ass, 40 to 80 hours a week, sometimes in the factories, and they're still not getting that American dream, that slice of the American pie. They're fed up, and they're very disillusioned with how the Democrats and Republicans are. Nobody is satisfied. These are some of the most dissatisfied people, and I think that it's the perfect storm sort of thing. Everybody's dissatisfied. You've got this resurgence of kind of this small conceptualization of working class democracy, and all it takes is a few good organizers, if you will. And I think that we'll start to see a lot of progress over there.
You're absolutely right, brother. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's interesting because immediately after this historic victory with the big three, they announced that they're going to be making an attempt, a push at organizing non-union workers across other automobile manufacturers. So I want to give this short promotional video a watch, and then get your thoughts on this recent push.
These hands.
These hands.
These hands.
These hands punch the clock.
These hands work the line.
These hands build the cars.
And every dollar in profit these companies make
Is made by these hands.
whether at Toyota,
Hyundai,
Mercedes, Volkswagen.
Rivian.
America's auto workers are at a crossroads. When the big three auto companies refuse to share their record profits.
auto workers got to organize.
For over 40 days and nights, auto workers at Ford, GM, and Stellantis held the line and won big.
There's only one question facing America's auto workers now. Who's got next?
These hands don't belong to any company.
they don't belong to GM,
They don't belong to Toyota.
They don't belong to Tesla. These hands belong to an auto worker.
and these hands will determine what happens next.
This is our generation's defining moment.
Either we organize and stand up for ourselves,
Or we keep falling further behind.
Either we fight for a decent standard of living,
Or we sit down and shut up.
As long as we're divided, we're weak.
but united, we can move mountains.
It's time for auto workers from all companies to join together.
from Illinois,
To Alabama,
From Mercedes,
To Toyota.
it's time to stand up.
all of us,
As
United
Auto
Auto
Workers.
Oh my God! If that doesn't chill your spine, we can move mountains together. You know who that
Exactly.
phrase is from? You know who has a little story of moving a mountain generationally?
Not
Mao
much.
Zedong.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
Mao
yeah.
Zedong,
That's
yeah,
right.
where the old man, the grandfather moves a little bit of sand, and then his son moves a little bit of sand, and people think they're crazy, and then after a couple generations, the whole two mountains were moved.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if these folks are reading Capital Volume One, but the essence of Capital is in the first sentences that you heard. We create the thing that turns into profit in the hands of the bosses. We create all of the value for society. So this is just an insane level of class consciousness, and it shows something that we've talked about quite a few times, just how advanced the working class is, especially in comparison to a left in the U.S. that's incredibly debilitated and infested with a lot of the liberal and middle class prejudices. But what are your thoughts, Kyle, about this new push to unionize non-union workers, and how do you read it in light of the recent victory against the big three?
Yeah, I think that with this forward momentum, this steam powering the engine, if you will, of what's just happened at the big three, I think there's a massive push from non-union workers to get organized, and I think they're feeling that because Shawn Fain also, in that same speech I keep quoting, he talked about UAW stands for "You Are Welcome," and that goes two ways. You're welcome to join us, and also you're welcome because as soon as they won those contracts with the big three, Toyota in the United States upped its wages by, I think it wasn't as much, but it was up by 15% within the same week that they closed the contracts with the big three, in response to the fact that they got to be competitive on wages. So you're welcome for that raise, by the way, because we fought for that, and you guys could probably get a lot more than 15% if you guys got organized, and that's the mentality that Shawn Fain's trying to drive home, and the UAW, I should say, as a whole, is trying to drive home into these non-union workers. They had a lot, very close to a success at Volkswagen in Tennessee. A couple of years ago, actually, it was about like 8 years ago, I think now. And they only were like 1 or 2% off from winning that. And Volkswagen spent uh, probably it was several million dollars, and this was just one plant. They spent several million dollars trying to break the unionization efforts in the Volkswagen plant in Tennessee, and they were able to succeed, but only by a couple points. I mean, there's already been a lot of effort on the UAW's behalf to try and get this done, and we're we're really hoping that there's a lot more success in the future. And I think there definitely will be because, like I said, if I was a worker at Toyota or Hyundai or Volkswagen or whatever right now, and I was watching, I just watched everybody at the UAW just win huge, I'd be like, "Where's my check? Why am I getting shit on at my job? Why do I not? Why don't I have any protection on the job? Why don't I have this pay?" I'd be asking the same questions. So I think it's a no-brainer. In that video, all those people who spoke in that video, they're people who work at Mercedes, they're people who works at Volkswagen, they're people who work at Toyota. They're already on the ball, and UAW has already allotted a lot of money into these organizing campaigns right now. They've got a lot of paid staff that they're bringing in to go into these plants and get these places organized. And I think it's all out war. I think that's really what it is. UAW is going all out war with these non-union companies, and I think they're going to win. I really do.
Well, that's music to all of our ears, and I was going to ask you to close out by telling you by asking how you think this is going to unfold, but I think you touched on that a bit there. But if you have anything else to say, considering how you think this is going to unfold in the next few months or years, and if you have anything to plug, please feel free to do so now.
Yeah, like I said, I just think it's going to be a lot of hitting the bricks, getting people organized. And if you live down there and you know people who work at these non-union facilities, I mean, definitely have that conversation with them. Um, People who aren't paid organizers are great. That's wonderful. But the most effective form of organizing is workers talking to workers, straight up. Working class Joes talking to working class Joes. That's just always how it goes. I'm in the Teamsters. I go and I organize some places. I'm a truck driver. In the Teamsters, I work, a regular truck driving job. I volunteer and go and try and organize some places. That's always what works. Is people who are right there in the thick of it, trying to talk to people as well. Um, that's my plug, if you will. Go out there and organize.
Absolutely, that's the universal plug that we're always making. It's you're doing nothing if all you're doing is listening to us and absorbing knowledge. Change
Yep,
minds, change hearts, change
absolutely.
the,
And
the
you
hearts
ain't
and
been
minds of
doing
the world.
nothing if you ain't been called a red.
There you go. There you go. That's going on with a classic line from one of the greatest songs of American socialist history. Thank you so much, Kyle, for coming on. We'll have to have you back on soon to give us the Kyle labor update. Thank you so much again, brother. See you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. All right. That was Kyle Pettis.